Okay, so welcome everyone under the tamarind tree. I will take 1 or 2 of your very precious minutes to introduce the tamarind tree project and what we've been trying to do here. This you can see above me is the tamarind tree. We are in a former refugee colony in Calcutta. This is called Vidyasagar colony. This tamarind tree lives in the neighbor's home. The neighbor is a very, not so well known freedom fighter, revolutionary freedom fighter, Parul Mukherjee. Parul Mukherjee, who was jailed in the Titagore conspiracy case, having been helping revolutionaries make bombs. She's the one in whose house the revolutionaries would come, learn to make bombs and make bombs. So when the police came to arrest them, the British police in 1935, when the police came to arrest them, Parul was seen trying to destroy evidence by burning documents but also eating documents up. She was about 15 years old at that time. Parul was jailed. She was also considered to be someone who was gullible, and therefore she was brought into the ambit of the revolutionary activities, but we know that she wasn't, because when the judgment is read out even today, we know that Parul had around 30 aliases. So she was known by 30 different names. So if this was not a revolutionary, who would be? In 1939, when the political prisoners were given amnesty, Parul was released, and in 1947, with the independence of India, she also became a refugee in the new nation that was created. She was one of the first settlers in this colony, and she built the first school. She later on went on to become the principal of the school, and we know her also because she was someone who was very keen to protect natural objects in this colony. So this tree that she planted, but also birds, some goats, cows. She could be seen protesting the closing down, the filling up of ponds. So, but today when we read the historiography of India's freedom struggle, we do not really hear about Parul Mukherjee. One of the few mentions that she has by Shandip Bandyopadhyay says that after 1940s, she lived outside of public glare, but a person who was taking all colony children to education, one who was teaching in a school, one who became the principal of the school, one who was carrying small sticks and big torches in the middle of the night to protect the colony from the landlord's goons, is described as someone who is living away from public glare. So the Tamarind Tree project is a way of reclaiming Parul Mukherjee's memory and history, but also we've been thinking about the tamarind tree as a metaphor for stories of displacement, but also stories of resistance. So with that, we've been doing a few events here under this tree. We've had a few songs, and we have had, not a few, many songs. We opened a YouTube channel. We had a 3-day concert. We had some discussions about refugee colonies here. But we also started a series called Tentultolar Talk. Now, those of you who speak Bangla, you know Tentul is another name for tamarind, which is sar. Talk in Bangla means sar, but talk, as we also know, T-A-L-K, is talk. So Tentultolar Talk is a pun on the sarness of the tamarind, but also the conversation that we are going to have. We've been trying to have some socially relevant conversations here. We've talked about the uprising in Bangladesh in August. We have talked about the ongoing protests against rape in Bengal. We've also talked about sexual harassment in workplaces, especially in the entertainment industry. But from that is the context in which we've set today's conversation. And we are very happy to have Rakesh Sharma with us, also because today is 22nd January, and we remember that just a year ago on 22nd January, many of us felt really sad describing the consecration of the idol in the Ayodhya Ram temple as one of the final nails, which we thought then in the coffin of our democracy. But Rakesh Sharma does not think so. He does not think that the final nail in the coffin of democracy has been struck. Also because this has been the 20th year of his exceptional documentary film Final Solution, which Rakesh will briefly talk a little bit about, and then we will have a few questions addressed to Rakesh. So will you tell us what is Final Solution and why did you make it?
Well, Final Solution is a film about the cataclysmic events of 2002. which catapulted a then unknown pracharak called Narendra Modi into national center stage, political center stage. And since then, it's been the rise and rise of Modi and the rise and rise of politics of hate and intolerance. I had no intention of making a film when the Gujarat carnage happened. I just finished my earlier film called Aftershocks: The Rough Guide to Democracy just a month before, and I just started showing it around. But that film was also set in Kutch in Gujarat, and Gujarat is where my first set of screenings were happening. So when the events started happening in end of February and then in early March, I was traveling at that point. I was outside the country, but as soon as I returned, I went to Ahmedabad and went to Shah Alam Dargah, the biggest relief camp, with my camera. And what I saw then not just sort of startled me, it shocked me beyond description. Because what I saw was of a very different nature and at a very different scale than I'd seen before. And I had my acquaintance with, say, riots in UP earlier. I'd filmed during those riots. I was a student in Delhi in 1984 when the riots happened, and I was actually on the streets. So I saw violence unfold in front of my eyes. I wrote about it. I reported it for Hindustan Times at that point. So I was no stranger to violence. I was no stranger to rioting and arson and looting,
You were also
even
in
killing.
Bombay in 1992.
That's right. I was going to come to that. I was I'd already been in Bombay for 5-6 years in 92, 93 when the riots happened. And this happened in my backyard. I was staying in Andheri East, and the nerve center of the violence was Jogeshwari East, literally about half a kilometer from my house as the crow flies. So when this happened in my backyard and I could see flames rising every night and so on, I decided to take a sabbatical from filmmaking, and I ran a relief camp in Jogeshwari in that specific area called Radhabhai Chaul. Those of you who might know the history of that area, that's where the Bane family was burnt alive, and that was the spark that triggered the so-called Bombay riots. So I ran a relief camp in that area for 10 months on a full-time basis, where we did all kinds of things, right from arranging blankets and milk powder and kerosene stoves in the beginning, to getting FIRs registered, to getting compensation claims registered and then paid off. And then eventually, when I left 10 months later, our last campaign was getting the burnt homes reconstructed. And I'll just take a minute to talk about that. Because we'd been working in that area for 10 months, and our endeavor was not just to provide, riot relief, but also to build bridges and to create a dialogue within the two communities that had come to, that had been violent against each other. We ended the campaign with a Shramdan campaign. And it was an idea that Seema, who's running the campaign with me, and I came up with. And we sat down with the community elders of both the communities and said that we need to reconstruct homes on both sides. We are going to organize all the relief materials, all the cement and bricks and all the the tin patras for the roof and so on. But we have a condition that the Muslim homes are going to be reconstructed by Hindu volunteers and vice versa. And because we had been in dialogue with both the communities at that point and they'd seen us for 10 months, they both agreed and came together. And all the homes that had been burnt in that belt, whether they were Hindu homes or Muslim homes, were reconstructed by the other community. And that's how a Mohalla committee was formed and dialogues happened and so on and so forth. So when Gujarat riots happened and I went to Ahmedabad, at the back of my head I thought I might volunteer again for some of these activities. I'd volunteered in 84 and 2002, in 92. But the sheer depravity of what had happened hit me very, very hard. And I actually stopped shooting after the first couple of days because I just could not handle the kind of stories that were being narrated to me. Uh, it's fine. It's fine. Okay, for those of you who missed it, he was pointing to the plane that was flying overhead, but there's a lapel mic, so the relative noise ratio is going to be differential. Okay. I was talking about the fact that I was shaken and shocked beyond belief. I did not want to this time do any relief work, and I went back and I thought about it, and within that week, a clarity emerged in my head that this time I was going to use all my uh, talents, experience, available skills to craft a passionate plea for intervention in the form of a film. Now, that was the easy part, coming to this decision. But then it took me a great, almost about 7 months to answer the other questions that had come up in my head uh, as to why did I want to make the film, who was it for, what was I expecting, from the audience that would eventually see the film, and who was indeed my audience. And these questions took me a very long time to clarify in my head. But once they got clarified, then the shape, form, structure, style of shooting, and indeed the reason for storytelling became very, very clear in my head. And I will briefly touch upon those as well. These questions and the clarity that emerged later. I became very clear that I was not making the film for the secularists, for the already converted. Why preach to the choir? I was also very clear that I did not wish to address the fundamentalists because you can't quite reason with faith. But it was my hope and hypothesis that the vast majority in between, 70-75% in between, who are either apolitical or ignorant or apathetic or just too busy earning a living and taking care of their families and so on, and didn't have time to think about all of these issues. The vast majority, 75-80% of people, that I decided was my audience. And that's the audience I wish to address through my film. So it became very clear that I had to tell my stories in a certain style to reach across to them. You must also remember that this was the first televised riot in the country. So one of the greatest challenges that I had was to actually break through and go beyond this perception that most of my audience was likely to have, that they already knew the truth because they'd seen things unfold on television. Barkha had reported it, Rajdeep had reported it, Aaj Tak and ZTV had reported it live. And those days they were not Godi media channels, so there was fair amount of independent reportage that had happened. The print media had also reported it quite well, except for the Gujarati media, which was loaded and biased and controlled by Modi and Shah and the VHP and RSS. So there had been this volume of reporting that had happened, and people felt that they knew these stories already. So it also took me some time to think through how I would deal with that and how I would take my audience beyond that. Uh, so which is why when you see the film, there is a degree of relentlessness in the structure, which is very deliberate
And painful for
and
the
painful.
viewer.
I have also taken great care to not give you any breathing spaces in the film. There are no cathartic notes of any kind in the film, not even at the end. Uh, uh, Not the mandatory candlelight vigil and some people singing "We Shall Overcome" and so on. There's no note of hope, false hope, I would call it, in the film. Some of my friends, including Anand Patwardhan, the documentary filmmaker, who's been a very close friend of mine, felt that the film was too despondent and too dark, and I ended on a note of despair rather than hope. Uh, but I argued that this is what I felt as a filmmaker, and that's the truth I saw, and that's what I wanted to present to my audience as well. Um, of course, at the back of my head, my intention was to hold up the film as a mirror to my audience and ask them this unspoken question: is this what you want to support? Is this the India of your dreams? Is this what you want your children to inherit? And my hope and hypothesis was that the answer would be no, that my audiences would shrink back in horror and say, no, this is not what we want. And then I would talk to them in my post-screening discussions about the fact that this was the time for intervention. The nature and degree of your intervention was yours to decide, but you couldn't just quietly sit back and say, let somebody else handle it. That everybody needed to intervene in some manner or the other.
So we'll talk about this a little here.
Yeah.
So you have consciously thought of yourself at that moment, and also when you are volunteering in relief camps as somebody who's intervening, because you're not merely distributing relief, you're also ensuring that the communities talk to each other and something new emerges out of it. And as a filmmaker, you're also thinking of yourself as making an intervention in the public discourse. And I want you to think a little bit about it, but also to talk about how you have used existing other forms of public discourse, like the VHP tapes that are being circulated. So in the film, we see series of a lot of footage from VHP's internal videotapes that were being circulated, which show the Godhra Sabarmati Express burning. And so it shows dead bodies, it has photos of people who were on the train, and so there's a very specific kind of narrative which is created, which is against Muslims in Gujarat. And you also use the other footage of pre-election rallies by Modi and various religious leaders who are being extremely vitriolic, extremely hateful, and that is the narrative in Gujarat at that moment. And then you take that and you are creating your own narrative, which is also intervening in the same space. So talk a little bit about the use of that and what you ended up doing eventually.
Actually, that got sparked off by this VCD video disc that was inserted in India Today by the government of Gujarat. And this was widely circulated. Every subscriber and every buyer of India Today got that disc. And that disc, if I recall right, was titled 2 Minutes to Truth, but was in a sense right-wing propaganda. Talking about 59 innocents who were burnt alive and the challenges it posed to the government and how it was an Agni Pariksha for the government. Now, this was something that had happened for the first time in the history of independent India, that a government that had been rightly attacked by the civil society for its complicity in the genocide, for giving a free hand not just to the VHP mobs and the Bajrang Dal cadres, but also ensuring that the police forces actually went out with them in tandem and attacked Muslim localities. Ministers in the state government sitting inside police control vans and police control rooms, directing mobs and directing police forces and making sure that paths were cleared for rampaging mobs. This was actually also the first time that a state government decided to use mass media to answer allegations against it, allegations that had been raised by civil society, by the National Human Rights Commission. By the time this CD was circulated in India Today, the Supreme Court had passed strictures, oral observations in the court itself, and the Modi government was besieged. So their response wasn't to come out and say, we will focus on relief work. We understand that this horrific round of violence that has happened has created a massive schism in Gujarat society, and we will work towards bridging gaps and so on. In fact, they hardballed, and their answer was spending crores of taxpayer money to insert this video disc inside India Today, which was the largest circulating news magazine at that point, so that their point of view actually went across. So when that happened, and I saw this, for the kind of remarkable thing it was, to me it heralded a change in political strategy, in the way political communication had been happening before that. And I realized that the BJP, VHP and RSS were going to use videos at a massive scale in the coming months. So it became very clear in my head that I needed to bring out this aspect, and you know that the secular forces, secular groups, activists needed to understand that this kind of ground level propaganda was happening at a massive scale because they weren't sort of mindful of it. They hadn't quite understood the scale and magnitude and nature of it. So they needed to be actually told as well that this is what you are grappling with, this is what you're up against. And any campaigns that you come up with and design to take on the right wing must factor for this as well. Uh, and it didn't quite happen, and it hasn't happened even till now. Even till now, the right-wing propaganda machinery is like a juggernaut that keeps rolling 24/7. But there's no counter narrative from the leftist or centrist formulations in any coherent manner or any sustained manner. That has been a problem. So the decision to use the right-wing material, their own propaganda material, and then to counter it, juxtapose it against the truth on the ground, that was quite deliberate as well. What you would also notice is that I refrain from cutting one voice into the other, that kind of interview style. That political documentaries or activist films, and there were about 30 films that were made around the Gujarat riots by the time I finished my film. But most of them had this kind of one voice after the other. I decided to stay away from that as well because I felt that the audiences had already seen this on television. They actually needed to not just have the bare narrative, but also uh, uh, see the pain in the eyes, the quiver in the voice. Listen to that to actually understand in all its complexity the great sort of human aftermath of what had just happened. So that's why my camera just focuses on people. I actually never go away from people who are narrating their stories, and that's a very deliberate choice. I also felt that I needed to shoot and edit the film in such a manner that all these stories went across. So I'm very deliberately using narrative fiction feature film techniques to cut my documentary material. Uh, if you notice the filmmaking itself, there are various scales that I'm shooting in any given situation. I took the decision to shoot with two cameras. Not too many filmmakers used to shoot with two cameras at that point. In fact, nobody. Uh, and both cameras were shooting a variety of scales: the mid shots, the long shots, the close-ups, the two shots, the over-the-shoulder shots, everything that you would shoot while shooting a feature film, a fiction feature film with actors. So I've used the same idiom, the same grammar, to ensure that the stories were humanized and went across to the audience. And if I have to encapsulate it, my core thought was when you see the film, it should hit you in the gut and it should agitate your head. It should be visceral. That they should, as audiences, you shouldn't be able to escape that. And that was my endeavor through the edit and through the shoot.
So it had the intended consequences that the censor board banned you.
Yes.
Right. And and I also want to mention this here that since 2019, Rakesh has made the film freely available on Vimeo for anybody to watch.
And on YouTube and other
yeah,
photo.
and you also say that you specially want to speak to the under 35 audience, people who would not have been familiar so much with what was happening then. But please tell us a little bit before we take questions from everybody who's here about what did you do when the censor board banned you?
It was quite interesting, actually. I'll talk about the day the censor board banned the film. I was in Bangalore screening my film at a festival called Prince of Freedom, which was being organized by the Vikalp chapter in Bangalore. Vikalp is something that we founded in Bombay in 2004 when Mumbai International Film Festival rejected my film and any political films that the BJP government headed by Mr. Vajpayee would have been unhappy with. So as a response to that, we organized a parallel festival on the same dates opposite the main venue, and we ended up drawing far larger crowds and so on and so forth. And then Vikalp actually took off. So there were many city chapters that happened. Bangalore was one of them. So Films for Freedom had organized that festival, and I remember the date. It was 29th of July in 2004, my birthday. Uh, so on that particular day,
Wonderful gift to get.
wonderful gift to get, but it was preceded by an even better gift. Uh, the Hindu Jagran Samiti decided to land up at the venue and actually disrupt the screening, not allow it to happen. And since auditoria are owned by private entities, they are susceptible to pressure. So they actually stopped the festival itself. So the film was moved to another venue, and we had a packed screening. As I was doing my Q&A, I got a call from the censor board saying your film has been banned. So, like I took a phone call right now, I took that phone call, stopping the Q&A, saying this is a very important call. And as I put my phone down, I announced to the audience, fabulous news, it's the best news I've had this year. The censor board has just banned the film. And there was spontaneous applause. Some people were very confused about why I was so happy. I had fully anticipated this. I wanted them to ban the film because I was grappling with the idea of how to distribute my film and make sure that it goes far and wide. So as soon as they banned the film, I put all the plans that had already been made, all the templates that were ready, I put them into action straight away. I went back to Bombay from Bangalore and ordered 20,000 discs, went to Sony, and at an industrial level, they made those discs for me. And then I first launched a campaign called Pirate and Circulate. And the idea was very simple. If you promise to pirate and make 10 copies of my film, I would give you a DVD free of cost. And it was unusual. And the idea was not just that you got a DVD, I asked you to carry the chain forward. So if you got a DVD, then you had to ask other people to pirate as well, whoever you were giving it to. Now, there was great forethought behind this. This was a political strategy. What had happened in the past with my friends like Anand Patwardhan, when their films would get stopped by the censor board, they took the legal route. They would first go to the appellate tribunal or to the revising committee first within the censor board, then to the film certification appellate tribunal, then to the High Court, and eventually, if necessary, to the Supreme Court. And the courts have, consistently ruled in favor of free speech, upheld Article 19 and so on. But this process of litigation takes about 2-3 years. So effectively, the film remains buried, and that serves the powers that be. So my strategy was politically very clear. I wanted the film to be out there. Also, I wanted the film to be out there because 2004 elections were to happen. So I'd circulated it before the elections. But when this happened in July, so it was 2 months after the elections results had been in. So, the core thought was, you want to bury my film, I'll make sure the opposite happens in your face. It'll be the largest circulating film ever. And that's what happened. People responded magnificently to the campaign. The film was pirated heavily and circulated widely. I also tied up with a few friends of mine, people like Tista, who was publishing Communalism Combat, my friend Yogendra Yadav, who was editing a socialist journal called Samaik Varta, which had been started by Kishan Patnaik in Odisha. Some left-wing journals in Madhya Pradesh and in UP and so on, with limited circulations of 500, 800, 2000. So I tied up with all these people, and all their subscribers and buyers got a free copy inserted in the magazine with a printed appeal from me saying, please screen and please pirate and circulate as widely as you can.
So you did your own India Today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Learn from them and use their methods. So, effectively, the film reached corners of India that I couldn't have possibly reached myself. I was talking about it this morning at Jadavpur, that for years I would meet people who would say, I'd gone for a wedding in XYZ town in Jharsuguda, and I got a DVD of your film, and I made 40 copies and distributed in Kendrapada and Bhadrak and Baleshwar. Or I got it, at this seminar in Chandigarh, and I took your film to Patiala, 100 copies, 200 copies elsewhere. Best was Karnataka. Some years, about 7 years after I'd done release the film, I'd gone to Karnataka for an event, and I met Pedestrian Pictures, the group there, and they said, "You remember you told us to pirate?" So I said, "Yes, of course. I told everybody to pirate." And they said, "We made a Kannada version, and do you know how many copies we circulated?" And I said, "Tell me." And they said, 12,000 in Karnataka alone. So I enlisted my entire audience and the like-minded people as my distributors and exhibitors.
At this point, are there any questions, pressing questions, not so pressing questions, comments, observations?
Oh, the ban was lifted within 3 months. But that was on the back of a very hard, sustained campaign that I did parallelly. It's an interesting story, so I don't mind sharing it. I'd anticipated that they will try to ban the film. So on the day my censor screening was scheduled, the CBFC had taken great care to ensure I wasn't in town, and they scheduled it on that day. I was in Bangalore. But my assistants had been thoroughly briefed. I'd also spoken to 2 journalist friends of mine, one from the Telegraph in Bombay and one from the Midday. So when the screening happened, my assistants and both the journalists were actually logging everything. And I mean, the logs are ridiculous. They are available, and I've actually put them online as well. We weren't told who are the 5 people who constituted the panel, who were to certify the film. So Mr. A and Ms. B and Mr. C, that's how the logs were made. So Mr. A leaves the venue 10 minutes into the screening to go to the loo, comes back 24 minutes later. Madam B goes to take a phone call, wasn't there for 32 minutes. So all this is logged beautifully and reported next day in the newspapers, in the Telegraph and in Midday. The beautiful part of this entire process was that the version that I had submitted to the censor board was 222 minutes in duration. So literally 3 hours and 42 minutes. So the censor board saw this film. Then these luminaries had a meeting. They debated my film. Then they consulted the law books and then wrote out their final ruling banning the film, specifying the grounds for the ban. And this process took them 3 hours from start to finish. So very obviously it got documented that they hadn't seen the film. Now with this, I actually went to the central government. The late Jayapal Reddy was the Minister of INB at that point. And I said to him, invoking a little known provision of the Cinematograph Act, which empowers the central government to overturn any decision by the CBFC. It's a provision that's never been invoked by the central government. So I said this is a fit enough case for it to be invoked because the censor board is politically partisan. They've done this, and you need to intervene. So I put the government in a very, very hard place. And Jayapal Reddy said to me that if we do this for you, then this becomes a precedent. And then this provision is going to be misused in the future as well. And I said, I'm fully aware of it. And I want you to actually reject my application so that I can go straight to the Supreme Court and short circuit the revising committee, appellate tribunal, and so on, because it becomes an act of omission by the central government, which only the Supreme Court is empowered to litigate and decide upon. The High Court doesn't have jurisdiction. And he said, yes, this is a good maverick legal strategy, but this is also going to open a can of worms. Let us deal with it in some manner, and we will handle it. And by this time, there were a great number of voices from all spectrum, the entire spectrum of civil society and within the film industry. So, today it won't happen, and today it would be shocking. But right from people like Karan Johar to Sanjay Bhansali to Ashutosh Gowarikar to actors and actresses and music directors, a lot of people signed the petition to overturn the ban on the film, and the petition was addressed to the government of India. So, yes.
Was it your impression that they'd actually seen the film?
I had held many screenings. I mean, in trade parlance, these are called trial shows. So, trial shows are normally held for feature films, for distributors and exhibitors, and for peers in the industry. But very curiously, I got roped in to sort of screen the film many times for many people within the film industry, because there was a buzz around the film caused by the fact that Final Solution had won an award at its premiere in Berlin, and that was that was a award for best feature film, best debut film rather. But that award had never gone to a documentary before, or ever since. So it created history there, and that was the year when Sanjay Bhansali had screened his film, and Vishal Bhardwaj was in competition as well with a film that I liked and I was rooting for actually, Maqbool. I think it's one of his finest films. So, and in fact, I kept telling Vishal that I think you are going to pick up this award because this is a brilliant film. And Vishal was very happy when I picked up the award instead. But because this had created history, there was a great degree of curiosity within the film industry कि ये है क्या, किसने बनाया और कैसे बनाया है, and how come this got the best feature, So, many of the people who signed, some signed without having seen it because others were signing, but I would say 70 or 75% of the signatories had seen the film. So, there was great degree of pressure from the civil society that happened, and that made Anupam Kher, who was the chairman of the CBFC at that point, also backtrack. In fact,
He's also had some public spat with you, no? He said some things.
Of course, I mean, Anupam got in touch with me. He rang me up, and he said, "Yaar Rakesh, तुमने बताया नहीं, तुम्हारी film है ये." And I said, Anupam, why should I tell you? When I was heading Star Plus and when you sent me a proposal, you never rang me up directly. You understood there was a protocol that my team would look at it, and then my supervising producer would decide a short list, and eventually it would come to me to take a decision on whether I want to commission it or not, and whether I want to give it funds or not. So I understand the same protocol exists at CBFC, and I didn't want to short circuit the process. So why would I ring you up? And he said, नहीं ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है? तुम्हारी फिल्म है, and एक काम करो, उसको submit it again to the revising committee, and I will make sure that this gets cleared immediately. And I'm very sorry for the hassle you faced. So I said, I refuse to resubmit the film, because if I resubmit the film to the revising committee, I'm actually ratifying the process that had taken place earlier, where you hadn't even seen the film and rejected it. And not just that, I said to him that, Anupam, I'm going to do other maverick things that you're not quite prepared for. And I described to him my plan to invoke the Consumer Protection Act, because I had availed of a government service, I'd paid a fee, and there was deficiency in that service. So within the Consumer Protection Act, I was going to sue the censor board. So Anupam actually got completely worried about it, and he kept ringing me up saying, please reapply. And I said, no way. So then he convened a suo motu revising committee. He paid for the auditorium out of his own pocket. The filmmakers are not supposed to pay for the fee. And that committee cleared the film without a single cut. And Anupam came out to the press and gave interviews about how it was a very powerful and moving testament of truth. And I quote him exactly.
I hope that is preserved somewhere.
No, it is absolutely preserved.
Okay.
It was reported widely. He was on television, it's in print, and so on and so forth. Now, as luck would have it, I got my censor certificate and I flew off to America, because I was presenting the film at Madison at the South Asia Studies Conference.
Yeah.
Because, everybody from South Asia faculty was going to be there, and I wanted to show the film to them. So, as I landed up in Chicago, my phone was on fire, because the central government had sacked Anupam Kher. And this was about 5 days after he cleared Final Solution. And he went on a rampage. So all I heard from all the reporters was, Anupam has said this and Anupam has said that. So, and this has also been preserved for posterity in media. All I said was, Anupam has this disease. he suffers from verbal diarrhea. I don't want to respond to it. So after the spat happened much later. The spat was in 2014, and the spat was not with me, but with Anand Patwardhan. They were both on a panel on Times Now in a TV debate, and Anupam talked about the fact that this mafia of the leftists, led by Anand, despite the fact that I had personally intervened to clear final solution, they acted against me and they made sure that I was hounded out. At which point Anand challenged him, and then Anupam came up with a series of falsehoods on air. Again, I was traveling at that point, but I came to know immediately. So my response was a video, a short film, because I'm a filmmaker, and it was called a short film about lying, where I juxtaposed the facts with Anupam's statements, and that went viral. So that was a spat.
Okay,
Yes,
you
of
have
course.
to ask your question on the mic.
Okay, so Rakesh, this film, you said short film about lying.
Yeah,
That's there in the YouTube, right?
it's on my YouTube channel.
Okay, so we can watch there.
Absolutely.
Good.
My ID right across all social media platforms, Vimeo, YouTube, Twitter, is Rakesh Film, without any dot in between. So Rakesh Film and YouTube/Rakesh Film, Vimeo/Rakesh Film.
Okay, okay.
So, Jhilam has a question there.
When the Gujarat program was happening, so it was, like you said, it was about a lot of firsts. First time a state government was being the perpetrators of violence and unleashing violence in that way. It was
No, not
not
the first time,
but yeah,
at this scale,
at this
with
scale,
this kind
yeah.
of micro coordination.
Yeah. It was also kind of like the first time, like so far from the 80s, if we see post Mathura, the women's movement has only seen women as being the victims of violence. This was also the time when women were also perpetrators of violence and openly calling for the rape and murder of a different community and all that. And now, 30 years later, I think all of this has become very commonplace. So the reaction that Final Solution had on a lot of people at that time was more of a shock. So that now all of it has become very commonplace and nothing shocks us anymore. So at this time, if you are to make a film of these times, so what would that be? Or would you how would you end it? Would you end it with hope, or would you end it with
No, I would definitely not end it on a note of hope, because I don't feel it. It pains me to say this, but I personally feel that we have to be prepared for right-wing hegemony for the next 25, 30, 40 years, because there is no countervailing political force that we can see emerging and consolidating. So we have to reconcile to the fact that the right wing is going to be dominant in the Indian political landscape for the next couple of decades or longer. If not as a ruling party, then as a very vocal and disruptive but agenda setting opposition. So either which way, even if they lose elections somehow, which they are not going to lose because by now they have co-opted the election commission, they perfected the art of rigging elections or manipulating results. So the right wing is not going to let go of power easily. But if there's great public anger, and despite all the manipulation they are thrown out of government, they will still be a very vocal, disruptive and agenda setting opposition. So I don't see a ray of hope. As to the other part of your question, if we were to, as filmmakers, respond to sexual violence against women and also women's complicity in that kind of sexual violence, both need to be actually now brought out in a starker manner. As filmmakers, what we need to understand is that you can only bring out the human side of the story, and you can try and do it to the best of your ability. All you can then hope for is that the truth that you bring out of the story of a horrific experience somebody has had, that it will move others who are watching it. But if they are immune to it, whatever you do as a filmmaker will not move them. There are people today who are so filled with hate that they actually want to kill children. They want to destroy a certain community. Now, unfortunately, what has happened in the last 20 years since I made the film, hate has become mainstream and legitimate. It's become kosher to express intolerance in our living rooms, in our public spaces, in colleges, in universities, on the stage in an auditorium. Now, these were the kinds of things that didn't happen 25 years ago. People would still hesitate to express themselves in these ways. So, what the BJP RSS has succeeded in doing is it has mainstreamed hate and legitimized intolerance completely. So, it's become a part of the daily discourse today. And the challenges for us as filmmakers or activists or interventionists in any way are even starker, even greater today.
I was thinking about this also, that, but there's another way in which this footage gets used. For example, when I used to work with Dalit Camera, we spent a lot of time documenting the Una protest, right?
Yes.
What finally catapulted Jignesh Mevani as a leader. And so the flogging of the Dalit workers who had just brought the dead carcass, who was taking carcass away, that video was circulated among WhatsApp users as a celebratory video, that okay, we've taught the Dalits their lesson. But that also consolidated the movement, anti-caste movement that then took place, and we had such massive mobilization of thousands and thousands of people going to Una, holding such a massive rally. So while I do agree with you that yes, people talk about it much more openly and people are okay with all forms of hatred, but such easy expression hopefully also consolidates the resistance.
Yes,
That's my hope.
Yes and no, because what has happened is understandable phenomenon which is parallel. There is a climate of fear. So many people who would have expressed themselves in the past do not express themselves anymore. There is a fear of being noticed. There is a fear of being marked. There is a fear of being shortlisted for the future, which has resulted in growing number of silences. So while I certainly hope that what you're saying comes true, but we have to be mindful of this other parallel development that's only sort of become stronger and wider.
Moshumiti has a question.
Yes, please.
Hi. So basically, I wanted something of what I wanted to ask has been asked by Jilam, because I wanted to ask about despondency, because I was also wanted to ask about 20 years on, and how do we feel, and what do we do? That as artists, as filmmakers, what do we do? This was one of my questions. The other is more about words. So you said that, so you were not addressing the film it was not for secularists. And the other group was, it wasn't for fundamentalists, because it's hard to speak to faith. Now, I'm not just playing with words, but I'm very confused about these two words, that is fundamentalist and faith, because at this time, when we stand in the time in which we are standing, it's become such a complicated question, I think. What is faith? And who are those who actually are holding on to faith? What is this faith? And are they all fundamentalists? This is something that I feel very troubled with, considering also, say, what's going on in Bangladesh. In this time, I am confused. So I want you to respond to that, please.
I've always held, and I'm on record about this, that one of the key problems the secular activist campaigns have had is that they have always equated religiosity with fundamentalism. And, I've had sort of very heated discussions with secular friends of mine about this, activist friends of mine, that just because somebody sports a tilak does not turn him into a fundamentalist. That in fact, that is the person we need to speak to. And that is the person I was trying to speak to in Final Solution. To give you an example, some of my most successful screenings in Bombay have been in a space called Kirtan Kendra, where only the devout come. And this Kirtan Kendra is for Gujaratis. So it's a Gujarati community, devout people who come there, mostly from the older generation, 50 and above. People you would expect would be supporters of Modi, and I won't be surprised if I privately polled them, they actually vote for Mr. Modi. But they've also called me back for repeated screenings in that space. And the conversations that we've had in that space have dealt with the fact that no faith actually preaches or promotes this kind of hatred or this kind of violence. I have been, able to talk to people citing our scriptures as well. Hindu scriptures, Ramayana and Mahabharata, or Puranas and so on, giving examples from them. And those do actually sort of resonate and touch a chord. So when I talked about the secular versus the fundamentalist, it was a hardcore fundamentalist that I was talking about, the hate-filled fundamentalist. And I can't reason with him because he's filled with hate. Whatever I say to him, he's been brought up on a bundle of lies that he's heard all through his life, about the fact that Gandhi was responsible for the partition, Gandhi favored Pakistan, Muslims did this, that and the other. So a lot of distortions that have shaped their worldviews and filled them with hate. You can't certainly start arguing and reasoning with that immediately. That needs gradual chipping away and, long-term sustained work. But as I said, my hope and hypothesis was that a large part of the Indian population is not fundamentalist, not hate-filled. They may have been anti-Congress for some reason. They may have been, mildly anti-Muslim for some reason. But I hope that when I presented the film as a mirror and held it up to them, they would actually shrink back in horror.
But in 20 years.
The mic again. Yeah.
Yeah, in 20 years.
Yes.
These same people couldn't have suddenly changed and become filled with hate. So, would you say that you did not see certain things?
I would.
Or you did not want to see?
No,
I would say that about myself.
I would differentiate between electoral verdicts and the rise and growth of intolerance. The electoral verdict is a distortion, I feel. Okay, let me just put it in perspective through numbers. Now, the BJP has won the last two elections, okay, and the Congress has lost. But Congress won the elections in 2009. Congress got an absolute number of 11 crore votes, okay? And in 2014 also they got 11 crore votes. And this time they got slightly more. The BJP still in this particular election has got 23 crore votes. That's out of a voting population of about 105 crores. Okay, so if you start looking at the fact of electoral support alone, they still don't have beyond a 20-25% electoral support. So, the fact of the matter is almost 30-35% people are not voting. Our voting percentages are between 60 and 65. Of the 65% who are voting, only a certain number are voting for the BJP, despite all their hard campaigns, despite their 24/7 propaganda, despite all the videos they are circulating. And therein lie some seeds of hope. But, we can't be completely despondent. We have to keep fighting. But more important, actually, I would go beyond and say that irrespective of the electoral verdict, people like you, people like me, and people sitting here, we need to keep the counter narrative alive. Because if we become silent, then this counter narrative is going to vanish. And there would only be the majoritarian narrative which would survive, 20 years from now, 50 years from now. I was talking to some German activist friends of mine, and they were talking about the fact that they were looking at my footage, and they were saying to me that you will only look at your edits and the eventual film you're going to release. But you must also look at archiving the rushes, the footage itself. Because they said, we now die for visual material from Nazi Germany. There are only a few newsreels that survive. There are only a few, propaganda films that Hitler himself got made that survive. But conversations with ordinary people, the average German, we don't have that visual archive. We don't have the political archive. And that you must preserve as well. So we need to preserve these voices in different kinds of media. Yes.
So I want to add to what Moushami has raised, and vis-a-vis this question of how despondent should we really be, because in the last 20 years since this film, there has been a slow rise of this tide, and I want to share a personal experience. My sister lives in Gujarat. She lives in Vadodara. She's been living there for 35 years. She got married there. I mean, my parents chose that as her marital home.
An arranged marriage?
Yes.
In Gujarat, okay.
Yes, to a Bengali man.
Okay.
But and I visited her very recently, just a year and a half ago, and I'm not going to talk about the level of the zeitgeist, which is amongst the people of my class in Gujarat. That has been talked about. I experienced something which is in the context of what you're talking about, the voices that are not getting recorded. So I wanted to go and visit some of the beautiful Sultanate architectures in Ahmedabad. And my brother-in-law, my sister's family have their family driver, who was, assigned to this job to take us for the day. And much of the day, we visited various kinds of Islamic structures in the old city. And so it was understood that this driver was on duty and that we would be on foot large parts of the day, because there are narrow alleys and there are these old chawls and poles that we were visiting, and that we would not be eating lunch together, and that he would be on his own. At the end of the day, he came back and dropped us off, and I found out that he had not eaten all day. And why hadn't he eaten all day? It's because these were all Muslim neighborhoods. This is a Hindu man, even there were plenty of vegetarian options. There was no trace of hatred in how he shared. It was just a fact of life. He felt disenfranchised. He felt powerless. He couldn't really stop me from, choosing these stops that I had taken. And I was absolutely gutted. I didn't have anything to say to him or to my sister's family, who then, of course, we were all kind of trying to feed him, and he had basically essentially fasted for 10 hours, which I hadn't, thought about. So this has become incredibly common in urban Gujarat. I'm assuming there's various kinds of tentacles in rural Gujarat, and this has become legitimized and normalized in a way. And now this Gujarat model is now, spreading elsewhere. So one wants to ask this question that Moushami's raised, that what does one do? There are, of course, no, there's not one answer, but there is a rise, an imperceptible rise of the tide, which has, at some point is going to spill over and do something else.
This rise so much in Bengal now. We're feeling this, especially. Everything is about Bangladesh now. Everything. And so this whole thing of the villain, Bangladesh as the villain. And
I'll
this is not just the villain.
Also, this ties in with Final Solution so much, because so many young kids and women are talking about Pakistan, which is the villain then, and in
Yeah.
Bengal today it is Bangladesh.
Bangladesh.
Yeah, so it is there, but it's also the other thing that I'd say is when you said it's BJP and because of BJP and because of RSS, BJP, etc. I would say that it's not just that because it's the world over. It's so many things that are happening. I mean, there's also the counter narrative. That's being raised and fed in Bangladesh. So there are all these contesting narratives almost, and of hatred. That so the spread of hate is just, it feels almost unstoppable. I'm not saying I know what I will do. I can't stop. I also know that I must do what I want to do and what I need to do. But the fear is this, that, as you say, it's, I don't know, 25, 30, 40, how many years? It's very hard to know, really.
I mean, there's a range of sort of observations to be, and I don't think I'll be able to respond, in a short frame of time. But there are a couple of things I do want to sort of bring up here. We need to revisit our past, and by our past, I'm not just talking about India or society at large, but people who were engaged in politics or were seriously interested in politics, and look at the blunders we have made, which has made possible what we see today. Both the leftist and the centrist formulations fail to recognize, understand, and deal with the rise of identity politics. The left was in denial of caste and faith, and the left never dealt adequately with those questions. To an outsider like me, sitting in Bombay, I was gobsmacked to see CPM cadres migrate to the BJP. I mean, to my mind, how could an ideological cadre that had, been politically sort of sensitized, even trained, abandon all that worldview and embrace something which was diametrically opposite? And then you realize that, the failing of the left, what had happened, through the last 30 years of left rule, in terms of the way the party structure devolved down to the ground level, in the way power was being exercised right from the village level upwards, how those intermediate power structures that had been co-opted into the CPM were not because of political, identification with the CPM ideology, but because that was a party in power. And these opportunist power structures then migrated to the next powerful formulation that was coming up, whether it was Trinamool or, whether it is the BJP for some people. So we need to look at these mistakes that have been committed by political activists, by cultural activists, by us as writers, us as filmmakers, artists, and so on and so forth. And we need to actually turn the lens upon ourselves as well to understand where we went wrong. And in those answers lie the solutions for the future.
Because you also begin Final Solution with those lines, right? That Santana lines about those who forget history are therefore bound to repeat its mistakes.
But on a lighter note to you, I would say that you gave the example of your driver who won't eat in the Muslim area. However, biryani remains the highest ordered food on Swiggy and Zomato.
I have no doubt about this.
Okay, there's a question.
Okay. So my question is very generic one. As you mentioned that you actually wanted to cater to or create some kind of impact for the in-between people, that is 70-75% of who do not belong either of the side, nor the secular liberals, nor the other extreme. Now my question is, because I recently watched Final Solution and it was extremely disturbing. I started recalling those days from my college years, and also as a filmmaker, I have been categorically suggested by the probable financiers to change the Muslim protagonists of my story. Uh, so now my question is that as a filmmaker, and as you say that the interventionists like you and other activist filmmakers should keep the counter narrative alive, do you really believe that making these kind of films can create a change in these 75% minds, or can intrigue some questions that they may not be on aligned with some sanity? So is it,
I've
do you
never
believe?
believed that films by themselves, or songs, or plays, or books can change people in large numbers. These are all, for want of a better word, I would say these are all tools that we place in the hands of cultural activists, political activists who are working at a ground level on a 24/7 basis for them to use. And one of the greatest tragedies that people like me and Anand Patwardhan constantly talk about is the fact that at least the two of us have ensured that our work is made available to the public, and we've placed the work in the hands of all the centrist and leftist formulations in a secular manner, without aligning with a single group. I talk to every single group, and I've made sure that my film is made available to every single one. It is a great disappointment to me that they never saw and shared the sense of urgency that I had. In fact, many of these people would talk to me and say, you're too mired in Gujarat, you're too myopic, you're trying to promote your work. And I would say, you are blind, get rid of your blinkers and see what's happening around you. If you allow this to happen unchecked, Mr. Modi is going to become the Prime Minister. And I remember the first serious set of conversations I had about this were in 2007. That was the first election Mr. Modi was going to fight as the Chief Minister. Second election for him. And I said, if you allow him to win this particular election, then he's unstoppable. Then he will become, he will go national, and he will become unstoppable. And at that point, I was, people scoffed and laughed at me, saying, your understanding of politics is very naive. You're just a filmmaker. And I won't name names, but I was told by very senior political figures in the political landscape of the country, both from the left and from the Congress, that we will allow him to continue to rule a small state like we allowed Jyoti Basu for 30 years. So he will be a Jyoti Basu of Gujarat for 30 years, and he will die there. He will never go national. And I said to them that I completely disagree with you. I think you are living in cuckoo land, that your understanding of ground level polity and the way it is getting shaped today is completely wrong. So, to sort of encapsulate the point I'm trying to make to you is that when we as filmmakers create our works with the hope of intervening, you and I as individuals can only go into, these a finite number of spaces. We can't actually be in every space trying to take a film forward. It has to be used by other people, by political formulations of a vast variety, diverse political formulations. It is sad that they've still not woken up to it. They're still not using these resources. Anand and I were talking about the fact, at this forum day before, about the fact that the left and the church own the greatest number of public auditoria in the country today, and they're not using these spaces. Even if I talk to left groups, outside of Kerala, even in Bengal, it is not as if my film is being taken around and screened by the district committees or, in any sort of auditorium owned by the left. And they have these kind of spaces, they're not using them. So that is indeed a great tragedy that as individuals we feel a sense of urgency which is not being shared by political formulations who should actually see the reality in a far sharper and clearer manner compared to us. The other part that you talked about, us being interventionists, I've had a bit of a rethink about that. And it sort of relates to what I was talking to you about in terms of how I saw 2007. So, I know that a lot of friends of mine, and maybe many people here, went into some shock and some depression in 2014 when Mr. Modi got elected. However, I was not shocked or surprised at all. I fully anticipated it. I went into a depression much before, between 2007 and 2012, when I saw, him rising and his propaganda machinery whitewashing his image from the butcher of Gujarat to the Vikas Purush, to the hiring of APCO worldwide, to the various kinds of things. Prashant Kishore doing campaigns to sanitize him and so on, to the scrubbing of all his, hate-filled speeches that I had documented, that the VHP and BJP used to circulate. They were being wiped out. Today you don't find them online. You find nothing online, from office speeches from 2002 or 2004. So I saw all of that and I went into depression, I mean, to put it politely. And I started questioning my own work as well, because the ineffectiveness of our interventions hit me very hard. And I floundered, I lost my way. And it took me the greater part of a couple of years to actually reconcile and redefine my own position and the way I looked at myself. So I no longer see myself as an interventionist. I see myself as a chronicler of dark times, because I think my primary responsibility today is to keep the counter narrative alive.
So we live in the times, so if I were to use your film in class, we live in the times where we are mandated to start it off with a trigger warning, right? So
Trigger warning.
Yes,
yeah, so if I were to ask
especially
you
for
what
this,
would be a
yes.
trigger warning for your film, and I ask it, of course, slightly sarcastically, but also in all seriousness. So using a material of a time that some of us lived through, we have different memories to it, vis-a-vis now when we present it, like, I mean, the onus of managing, the audience's emotions are also on us in some ways. So what would you suggest? What should be an appropriate trigger warning for Final Solution?
Before you answer, I have to tell you this. I don't know whether you know. There are some 3-4 people in India who have done they're psychologists who've done a research of what is the effect of watching violence and the film they have used on patients, or what is the after effect. And the film that they've used is Final Solution. It's
I didn't know
a peer-reviewed, internationally published article. I will send it to you. I will
you
do
must
that.
share it. I wasn't aware of this. I would say, I mean, this is something that I thought about even when I was making the film. So there were very deliberate choices that I made. You do not, for instance, see any blood and gore in the film at all. People allude to it. You hear it in all kinds of narratives, but you don't quite see those kind of gory visuals at all. And as a very deliberate choice, I use only 3 visuals or perhaps 4 visuals at the very end when the film is coming to an end, and in that end song. Because, as I said, I was making a political choice. I wanted my audience to be completely shell-shocked when they left the auditorium. I didn't want to give them a cathartic note. In fact, I wanted to do the reverse. So for that, I not just used those 3 or 4 stills of policemen and dead people on the street, but also I went back and showed you all the faces that you'd seen in the film, as if reinforcing their stories before you left that space. So you see Ijaz and Medina and Sultana and Bilqis and others that you'd seen through the film in that last minute before you leave. So I was very clear about the fact that the film shouldn't have any blood and gore, because to me, the moment you see that kind of blood and gore, you shut down. I shut down when I see that kind of imagery on screen. So I didn't use it. As to what should be your trigger warning, I'm a bit flummoxed. So allow me some time to think about it, and I'll write to you about it and say, this is the trigger warning you should use. But maybe if you have to use a trigger warning, you can say that this is the story of a monster who sanitized himself and became the Prime Minister of the country.
And that itself can be super triggering for
Yeah.
people, right? So the trigger warning is like you telescope it into infinity. So
Yeah.
trigger, about hatred, about
So,
Now you
Shuruchi,
make me feel like the maker of Inception within.
Shuruchi, do you have a question? That will be the last question.
Just wanted to share the observation because I've been, showing your film for over 6-7 years that I've been teaching at Jindal. I teach this course on media history. So I've been showing your film Final Solution for consecutive years that I've taught this particular course. I show the Ram Ki Naam, and then after that, quite pleasantly surprised that and we deal with a kind of a group of undergraduates who have never heard of Gujarat riots, who've never heard that there was a Babri Masjid. So this is the audience that we are speaking with, and so quite over the years, I mean, obviously their responses vary, but I think what touches the way the film opens with this little boy's narrative who recounts the death, and in a very casual fashion, the death and the that he witnessed himself. That is something that kind of I saw that most of the students, even who think that the Prime Minister is the most honest of the individual or the leaders that the country has seen, it's something that kind of shakes. I've seen that they're kind of shaken by this particular narrative that comes to them, and also the fact that in different gatherings that Modi has actually accepted that his culpability in this whole criminal activity, and that is something that I found to be quite gratifying, that students themselves, they were this is something they get very touched. I mean, there is no in any other debates there would be questions and counter questions, so they often, I mean, this is something that I was quite pleasantly surprised. I mean, that is the I've used that as a material in the class, so probably your response to that. And also I was wondering that if you were to make a film now in kind of continuation what Jhilam mentioned earlier, and also, I mean, you've used a lot of narratives, so now also we are kind of in a very mediated environment. Earlier, 20 years back, it was the first time of audiovisual narrative of this. So how would you do this? Because there is also a lot of social media documentation of the narratives, also false narratives that is being circulated. So how would you approach your subject? And we've seen so many the Delhi riots and so many others have happened. So now, so how would you respond to that?
I don't think I would actually have a very different approach. Here what I would actually like to talk about is a series of debates I've been having with the filmmaker. I had with my filmmaker friends, and my sort of submission to them was that very often we construct films with our heads, within our heads. We think through our structures and we plan and we edit and we shoot along those pre-thought structures. To me, any filmmaking has to be a balance between the head and the heart. You can't be only totally emotional and you can't be totally dryly intellectual about it. It has to be a combination of the two. So, we have to constantly appeal to human emotion and invoke that human emotion and hope that our work touches somebody deep inside. As I said, with Final Solution, I felt very strongly that I must hit people viscerally with the film. Maybe, I won't do that today, but I would still want to tug at their heart, to engage them emotionally, to try and ensure that when they leave the screening venue and go back to their universes, in their homes and their hostels or whatever, that the next day, the week after, the month after, there are still some questions that pop up in their head. There are still some images that linger. There are still some words they heard from a child or a woman or a man that disturb them and resonate within them, because that will continue to trigger a thought process, and only that triggered thought process over a sustained period of time would lead to any kind of change, whether at the level of the individual or the social level or a bigger political level.
Okay. Question there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it probably is not a question or more of a request to the creative minds. I'm just recently shifted away from Gujarat. I was in Gujarat for around 2011 end.
Which
And
city?
Barodra.
Baroda.
Right? So, supposed to be a cultural city. And in my society, there was one single Muslim family. They had to forced to sell their flat, their house.
Yeah.
Nobody was playing. No children even were allowed to play. I mean, the parents were pushing them. So that's probably common, and it was for me quite a shock. So my point is, the humanity, the love beyond religion is almost not there in Gujarat. We heard Gujarat is kind of a model city, model district or whatever. But how about portraying these, making a story, and the after effect of 2002 to the minorities? Because we, even now today, we have Sabramati, which is 22 years later. So if someone can make that, which probably I haven't seen, I don't want to almost, so which probably will be lies as well. So why not making some truth about what is the impact of those 2002 person, their relatives. Like I have very difficulty to get somebody Muslim, a good one, good person, resource, from Kerala. They will not be liking to come to Gujarat to work because they have riots. So these impacts, these effects, can we talk about these? It's a question or maybe request, and can we see beyond?
So what I would like to share with you is that I've actually been working, I've actually filmed in Gujarat for another 10 or 12 years later to document precisely this, the long-term impact and the aftermath. But I've not confined myself just to the Muslim community, because I feel that's only part of the picture. I've actually looked at, and I've done so very seriously, I've looked at the perpetrators as well. I've looked at how the lives of the perpetrators have been impacted at the 5-year mark, at the 10-year mark, at the 14-year mark. There are a series of startling revelations for people who don't know Gujarat so well. Among the foot soldiers and among the car sevaks, the mobilizations that happened by the VHP and RSS, mostly OBCs and Dalits were enlisted in the cities. And in the rural areas, especially the Panchmal belt, which is adjoining Baroda, only, mostly OBCs and tribals were enlisted. So these are also the people who have suffered the most. And I've actually documented this over years. And it was very hard to actually first, to be able to get into these kind of spaces, then persuade people to speak, and then, try and deal with the minders that were still keeping a watch, whether they were from the, local intelligence or the cops or party people and so on and so forth. But despite that, I've been able to document a vast number of people. And the story that emerges is, quite clear that these people were recruited, used, cynically exploited, and then dumped and left to rot. And this is a story that I've documented in 50 homes with 50 people who participated as foot soldiers in the mob and went out for rioting and arson and all that. I've stayed away from those who committed heinous crimes like murders and rapes and gang rapes, but the foot soldiers I've focused on. I've also focused on the so-called car sevaks. 59 people died, all you've heard is action, reaction, car sevaks were killed and that's why this happened. So what do the car sevak families themselves feel? That's number one. and what happened to the Kar Sevak families. So again, it's a very clear story. VHP and BJP and RSS use their stories for political gain, for electoral victory and so on and so forth. After 2002, they've been forgotten. So, I mean, they were actually happy and surprised that somebody like me came visiting to document their stories. And I documented them in 2007 and then 2012, so 10 years later as well.
Yes.
And again, uniformly of the people that I've spoken to, and I've spoken to about 15 families, and the 59 members are from about 20 odd families. So I've spoken to almost 70% families. They all oppose politics of hate. They all oppose retribution and revenge in their name. They all tell you on camera in one voice that their tragedies were exploited. And I felt this narrative was very important for me to document, because this is what I want to take to Dalit bastis and OBC areas when I finish the films, to say, look at what they did to your brothers 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Today you want to align with them. Beware, this is what is going to happen to you.
Okay. Final question from Bonali.
Yes.
Yes. Revisited, right?
Final Solution Revisited.
Bonali.
I thought it will be one long film, but it is turning out to be a series of 3 feature-length films within the umbrella title Final Solution Revisited, of which one whole feature-length film is about Hindutva and caste.
Okay, the very final question from Bonali.
Just one specific question, like this Chara community,
Yes.
the people staying there, they witnessed that weapons were being accumulated in the temples for almost 10 years before the Godhra thing. Is that true? Do you know anything about it?
I mean, I won't say 10 years, but the fact is, local temples and party offices and, sort of wealthy sympathizers' spaces were being used to stockpile weapons.
And that has been going on for quite a number of years.
And it's been a fact of life, not just in Gujarat, but elsewhere as well. Okay. So, but I mean, since you're talking about the Chara community, you do know that the Chara community foot soldiers were themselves enlisted to go and riot in Naroda Patia.
Yeah.
And I've also documented, some of the Chara community members who were recruited and then left to went and discarded. One of my assistants, who's now an accomplished filmmaker himself, Dakshin Chara, he's been documenting this as well.
Budan Theatre.
Budan Theatre, correct.
Yes.
So, yes, this kind of stockpiling and all of that happens. But if the question is, was the blueprint and the template for the Gujarat carnage ready 10 years beforehand? No.
Okay, not 10 years, maybe 5-7 years, but then Sabarmati,
maybe a couple of years.
Sabarmati could not have been the trigger. I mean, only trigger. I mean,
No, when Sabarmati Express happened, as in my film, somebody says कि वहाँ तो पहले से हिंदू समाज में जागृति आई हुई थी, इसीलिए इतना बड़ा प्रतिकार हुआ. Because they had been able to communalize a large part of the populace, they were able to, enlist the kind of reaction or trigger the kind of reaction that happened.
Right.
About the Sabarmati Express itself, I could speak for hours. The actual story of what happened inside S6 and why it happened and how it happened. All I would say very politely is what we've heard through the courts and the verdicts that have happened are sheer travesty.
Yeah.
Absolute travesty.
Once in a while we get to hear about it. Nowadays many people are digging those incidents and we get to hear that those narratives are not at all true.
Absolutely. I can give
But
you
then-
graphic
but
micro details.
That will require another day, I think.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So, last question to Shreya.
Okay, so on a lighter note, I just wanted to ask you that you have made a conscious choice about creating a counter narrative against hatred, but you also created something quite new at that time, Pirate and Circulate, what you have started. Like, was it also a conscious choice to completely do away with the middleman and the access of some people, control of some people over the access of who gets to see what film, who gets to go to the theatre?
Absolutely and totally so.
Okay, that was my question.
All right.
Yeah.
So, thank you everyone for coming here, but also thank you Rakesh for
Pleasure being here.
You've been in Calcutta for 3 days. I think you've done more for us right now by screening Final Solution in so many places, which we could have screened ourselves, which we did not. But thank you for coming and screening and having so many conversations. And also everything that you've said, and I've been listening to you for a day and a half now, this also has been resonating so much with young people who want to make cinema, but also are afraid of making things which are going to disturb the powers that be. And I'm certain I speak for all of us when I say that you've given us courage. So thank you once again. And
Thank you for having me here.
please stay with us on the Tentultolar Gaan YouTube channel, and we will upload this shortly as soon as people who know how to edit have edited this. So, okay, thanks.
All right.
Oh, we have social media handles. It's on Instagram and on Facebook. If you have taken photos, please tag us on them. So, it's either in Bangla you write Tentultolar Gaan, or in English you write Tamarind Tunes, and you should get us. So, please remember to tag us so that this work also can sustain itself eventually in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.